Hello and welcome to Kids from Yesterday. This is an emo podcast that's going to be all about emo culture. Every week we're going to do a deep dive into facets of emo culture that interest us. So I'm Courtney.
And I'm Clodagh, and today we are going to be talking about why emo is not a phase.
I have why podcast written here. So, well, basically me and Clodagh were talking the other day about, what were we talking about?
I think we were talking about, as typically we were talking about diet culture and how when we were like teenagers, the only bodies that we had to admire were like, or like look up to were like thin white women, and we were kind of talking about how I had never seen kind of bodies that look like mine, because when I was a teenager and I was going through my emo phase, I was like a size 16 to 18, and how in Kerrang, which was the only magazine I ever bought, or on their Kerrang TV, I didn't see any bodies that looked like mine. So we kind of started talking about that, and then it kind of just, the idea, I think,
grew from there.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember screaming at you through Instagram messages, can we do an emo podcast? And you agreed for some reason.
Yeah.
But definitely that's a topic that we were just talking about there that we want to do a deep dive in at some point. Kind of talk about that aspect of emo culture, because I think like fashion and like that whole aspect of it was such a huge thing.
Yeah.
Like if you were emo as a kid, you had the hair and you had the clothes and you dressed like Hayley Williams, or you dressed like, you know, Jared Way, and there was no real in between, and like both of those people were thin and
white and cisgender
so there was a lot of stuff like that when you look back at it now, you're like, wow, there really wasn't very much variety for us. So we definitely want to talk about that at some point, but why podcast? To answer that question,
something else we've kind of been thinking, I know, at least, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but in the days leading up to kind of that conversation, I've been thinking about how My Chemical Romance had like gotten the blame for a spate of suicides and self-harm, and there was this whole thing in the Daily Mail. I know they like had a concert in London at some point after that where they were all chanting, you know, F the Daily Mail, and I kind of been thinking about, isn't that just bizarre that this band got the blame for something that was completely irrelevant, and people, I guess, from the outside looking in, parents, adults, were, you know, air quotes, concerned about it, but they were taking it up completely wrong. I just didn't understand.
It wasn't a phase. But it was interesting. I mean, it's the same thing as Marilyn Manson getting blamed for like murderers and serial killers and stuff. It's that real, we don't understand this satanic panic thing. And you have a bunch of kids covered in eyeliner, as I am today. It pained me to paint eyeliner around my face, like it's everywhere. It's never coming off. But that was, I imagine, to a lot of parents, confusing. And then
strange.
And then the only reference you have are all those shows that were like, this emo did it. And you always have like the weird kids that hang out in a house in the middle of nowhere with like, you know, pentagrams painted on the walls and like fuck Satan and you know, like stuff like that. So you can see why, but it is ridiculous. So it's interesting to see bands that were kind of intrinsically linked with like mental health issues, which again is something else you want to talk about maybe in a future episode. But there really was that whole fear, I guess, that kids were listening to this music and becoming depressed instead of a bunch of sad kids found artists that heard them and said to them, you know, this is okay. Or in my chem's case, that they're not okay. I hate myself. But you do have that thing where that was, I mean, like, what got you into emo music?
For me, I think it started around, it all started around 2006, I'd say, was when I like first got into my chem. 2006, I think it was 2006, 2007, I'll say. I can't really remember. And I started listening to My Chemical Romance mainly because I used to stay up all night watching the music channels, and I remember staying up until Scuds would play the My Chem songs, and then I'd go to bed.
Scuds, though.
Yeah, that's not a thing anymore, which I only recently found out. But yeah, I got into it that way, and then, you know, as I started secondary school, you know, the people in my class were into High School Musical, and they were into Chris Brown, and I kind of, you know, as much as I kind of, you know, as you do when you start secondary school, you try and fit in with everyone else in your class, and I had got an interest in kind of R&B music and High School Musical, but I was still really into My Chem and Fall Out Boy. And then I met a couple of people in the year below me who were like really into My Chem and Fall Out Boy. I was like, oh my god, these people. I've met people who were into the same music as me, and I kind of from there progressed. And then I guess with Twilight, when I read the saga, and Paramore did a song with them, I was introduced to Paramore, and they became my favourite band, my favourite emo band. But it's always been just there.
Yeah.
Avril Lavigne.
Oh,
Busted.
Avril.
I think for everyone it goes back to Busted. Were you Busted and McFly girl?
Oh no, I was a Busted girl.
Okay.
For years I refused to even acknowledge McFly because I was like, they're a rip-off of Busted. Like, as if, you know, three-piece boy bands didn't exist before that, as if they weren't a rip-off of like Blink, and like Blink weren't a rip-off of like Green Day and stuff.
Yeah.
But like to child me, I was like, I love Busted and McFly suck.
Yeah, I was the same.
And then I discovered Avril Lavigne as well. And now discovered is like, she was on the radio.
Yeah.
There wasn't much discovery there. But I really liked her, and then something happened and I got really into Linkin Park. Actually, I think part of that, like going back to Twilight, like I was really into the books before the film happened, and Stephanie Meyer had a website and she used to make playlists for each of the books. So she had Muse and she had Linkin Park and she had a bunch of other bands that I'd never heard of. So I would have been like 13, I think. And I remember one Christmas I was like, can I have all these Linkin Park albums? And one of my aunts being like, what? You were a child. But that was kind of like the first thing, and I do remember I was the same in school. Like, you just want to fit in.
Yeah.
But I was kind of looking for people who liked all this stuff. And then somebody, when I was in first year, mentioned Fall Out Boy. It was actually the year they went on hiatus.
Oh.
She'd gone to see them, and I was like, who the hell are Fall Out Boy? And then I heard some of this. Oh no, that's a lie. I knew who Fall Out Boy were. So there was a now 60 something or now 50, would have been a now 40 maybe, I don't know, but it had This Ain't a Scene, It's an Arms Race on it, and I remember listening to it and thinking, like, that was the first time I'd ever heard a song for what it was, as opposed to just like, oh, I like the music to this, or I like this. Like, I actually heard the lyrics, and it was kind of my introduction to poetry, I guess. I got really like deep and emo into these things before I'd even realised I had. So but like I had never thought about going to see these bands because that just wasn't, I didn't have any friends who liked them, so like going to a concert was completely beyond me. So a girl in school was like, oh, I saw Fall Out Boy and now they've gone on hiatus, and I was like, first of all, what the hell is a hiatus? If only I knew. And then like second of all, like I didn't know that was even a possibility. So I think I discovered Paramore around the same time as you, like with the whole Twilight thing, and then doing Decode, and I caught myself. I was kind of late to the My Chem game, I think, which is really interesting. Like, there was people I went to school with who, again, were absolutely like so into My Chem, and I don't know what stopped me from. But like at the same time, I was trying to like listen to Kanye West and all these other people that like I have absolutely no interest in now, but that at the time I was like, yeah, other people talk about this stuff, I want to listen to this too. I did eventually find people though that did like all the stuff I liked, and that was kind of like where I found Panic at the Disco. And, God, I can't even think of any of them really. Like, those are kind of the main ones. I actually found my old iPod the other day and I looked at the music on it, and it's the same. It is the exact same stuff that I listen to now. They had like 2 other bands on it that I don't listen to anymore. Remember Young Guns? Yeah, Young Guns and Orson, because I really liked...
Oh my god, yes, they had that one song, Yesterday or
no, Tomorrow. Yeah,
no.
Yesterday or Tomorrow. Yeah, that was the only difference. Everything else was like All Time Low. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention my faves.
Yeah.
All Time Low. I am a sad All Time Low stan. I've seen them 20 times and I don't want to talk about it. But like your Paramours, you're like...
Yeah, Paramore are my baes. Like, I like what you said with This Is in a Scene. When I kind of first, like heard of Misery Business, because I was somebody who, like, I did like My Chem, I did like Fall Out Boy, and I would like watch Kerrang and Scuzz to try and find that music. At the same time, I was watching The Box, really shamefully so. I was really into Chris Brown. I was still really into Beyonce, like just kind of into like R&B, but also into emo. Like my iPod would have been really, really mixed at that time.
Yeah.
So I kind of was like, I fit in here, but I also fit in here with emos. And I guess I kind of progressed more towards that because they understood me. Like, they were really, really into this music. And because I had been kind of into it, but also as an outsider, as somebody who was the only person who was kind of into it, my interests were elsewhere. But I remember in first year, I actually went to meet Gary Barlow from Take That.
Wow.
And in the picture is me, and I'm wearing like a red and white top. I have like a black waistcoat on, and there's a little tiny Green Day badge on it.
Oh.
I'm dressed in the colours of American Idiot. I'm like staying true to myself, but also, you know,
hanging out with Gary
Barlow, you know.
So I guess trying to define what emo actually is really difficult.
Yeah, it's different, I think, like between different people. I guess like the American sense of the word might be something completely different to what it is here. I know, at least, you know, in Ireland, or at least in my group, the kind of the emo kids, they didn't just listen to emo music, we also listened to a lot of pop punk.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that would have blended in America as well as it does here. I guess because here, at least anyway, I think emo was defined by what's on Kerrang.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of Good Charlotte, there was a lot of Sum 41, Puddle of Mud, all that kind of stuff. And as well, then you have like the goth music, like Marilyn Manson, Metallica, or the metal music that was kind of blending in with the emo scene as well. But it's definitely...
We didn't have that distinction, I don't think. Like a lot of... You see on like American MySpace and on Tumblr now even, they had a distinction between emo and scene kid. And I guess like for considering the bands I listened to, I probably would have been more scene than emo. But the people I hung around with, like, I mean, to me the pinnacle of emo is My Chem.
Yes, definitely.
And I'm like, oh, here's all these other bands that I listen to. Like when you talk about emo, you talk about My Chem. But we were also limited in who came to play here, I think, as well. Like even in England, like they had a lot more bands and like a lot more venues, and even if they only played in London, you could still travel down, whereas here it was kind of a bunch of bands came kind of around 2010, 2011, 2012, and then nothing, and still kind of nothing. Like we kind of go through phases of who comes here and who doesn't. And even on like revival tours or like anniversary tours, we're kind of skipped over a lot.
You Meet Six will never forget us though.
I hope not. I mean, he was the last time they played here, he was like, we'll probably never come back here again.
Yeah, that was really
thanks Josh. really, really appreciate that. Still don't know what he meant, whether he was thinking like Brexit or he was just thinking can't be arsed with this, or
is it because it's so expensive to bring... Did he say that on stage, or is this a thought I had? This is like my life. Is it something somebody said, or is it something I thought? But did he say on stage like it's too expensive to bring equipment over?
I don't think so.
Okay,
or maybe
that
he'd said that before. Like I know, like on tangent time, I know smaller bands. So there's a band called Mallory Knox who I really like. I fucking love them so much. But I remember talking to them somewhere and being like, can't you come play a show in Ireland? And they were like, we've looked into it before, like the last few tours we've done, and it's just not worth it because of the cost of the venue and the cost of bringing over the equipment. It just... They were like, we'd end up losing money. And he's like, we can't even guarantee that we'd sell enough tickets to make it worthwhile. So they were like, sorry.
Yeah, maybe it was you then who said it to me afterwards.
I
feel like we spoke about it afterwards and you were like, you must have said that to me. Because I don't see how my brain would like go there to think about,
I don't know, yeah, maybe I did come up with that. I really don't remember. But like getting back to what defining emo as, like, I do think it's interesting that there's a whole culture where you're clothes and your hair and what you listen to were identifiable. So you could see somebody else in the street, and even if they didn't have like the full fringe or like multicolored hair or the weird clip-in raccoon extensions, you'd still know that's an emo.
Yeah,
that's one of my people. And I think that was always something that really interested me.
Yeah, actually, when I was standing on O'Connell Street earlier, I was kind of looking around to see, like, I was just looking at what people were wearing, and I was trying to pick out in my head, like, okay, who around me might identify as emo, or at one point identified as emo. So like I feel like it's a bit harder now to define, like, to pick somebody out as an emo, because not only are we kind of not gone past the emo stage, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, like, the actual era, I guess.
The era.
Well, like, a lot of people wear the clothes now, so it's not...
Yeah, so like a lot more people would wear Converse, and a lot more people would wear Doc Martens, whereas back during the emo era, those were things that were reserved for emos. If you wore Converse, you were an emo.
And people would make fun of you.
Exactly. Whereas now, every second person is wearing Vans, everyone's wearing Converse, skinny jeans are huge. And yeah, that, like, the check shirts and all that kind of stuff, that is something that I would have worn a lot of, and like looked around for people, you know, in the nav and emo scene to see who else was like one of my people. But yeah, I think it's a bit harder now to pick them out of a crowd.
Yeah.
But definitely it was something that hugely defined. And I guess as well, it goes with like punk rock. You can tell a punk rocker, well, from then at least. Yeah. You know, a mile off. Mohawks, leather, all those kind of things. And definitely it's the same with emo.
Yeah, I think even now, like, the whole idea of, like, a punk would wear, like, patched jackets, and that's a big thing now. Everybody does it. Or, like, you know, you have facial piercings, you must be a goth. Whereas, like, everyone has their nose pierced, including me.
And tattoos as well. Yeah. Wrist tattoos especially were, I feel like, a big thing for the emo era. Notably a phrase that was 2 words, one on each wrist. Yeah. Or stars. But,
the stars, remember those?
The black and red stars.
I'm really glad I never did that.
Same. And I definitely think that they were things that, again, were reserved for goths, emos, but now they're just, you know, they've kind of flooded into the mainstream and they're everywhere.
Yeah, so it's really hard to define what it is now. Yeah. Compared to what it was then. It was very, very much a weirdos in the back of the classroom, and everybody thought they were weird and would say it several times a day, not speaking from experience or anything, but you could see it, and they'd all kind of migrate towards each other, whereas now I don't think that's, maybe it's not even as necessary anymore. Like, I do think it was partially a survival thing back in the day, because there was such a stigma around, like, having poor mental health. Like, we're talking, like, even back in 2012. When did you finish school?
2011.
Yeah, so I finished in 2012, and even back then couldn't talk about being depressed, whereas, like, my sister goes to the school I went to, and she said it's much better now, and they talk a lot more openly about that kind of thing, and they're a lot more accepting of, like, LGBTQ students, whereas when I was in school that was not discussed, but you could kind of see an overlap between all the emo kids and the ones who were, like, LGBT. So I do think maybe in part it was a survival thing. Like, we had our way of distinguishing ourselves so that we could find other people like ourselves. And it wasn't, I don't think anybody ever decided, oh, let's all wear this. Like, we also thought it was cool. It's not like I was gonna put on my survival gear right now, but it did help. I think you'd always know, like, oh, hey, I can talk to you about this band, most likely. But there was some people who, like, if they were super into my chem and you were like, oh, I like All Time Low, they'd be like, oh, God, they're such sellouts. Like, I do remember somebody laughing at me for saying All Time Low was my favourite band. She's like, All Time Blow. And I'm like, they call themselves that. It's not, like, it's not an insult. No. Yeah. Like, they fully know how terrible they are. And I fully know how terrible they are, but I still love them very much. But it's just, I do think it's interesting that that's...
Yeah, definitely. And even, like, I think the great thing about it as well, this actually happened to me, like, a few months ago when I was in work, and this girl... She was, like, chatting away to me. She did, like, and she was, like, 19. She was in, like, NCAD, and she was talking to me about music. And I had just gone to see Yumi at 6 do their 10-year Take Off Your Colours anniversary show. and she was talking to me like, oh, I'm an emo and I like my chem and everything like this, and she, like I said, she was about 19, and I was like, oh, have you ever heard of Umi at 6? And she was like, no, who are they? And I have to, like, she made me like write down the name on her phone so she go and look them up, and I was like, oh my god, she's emo but she doesn't know who Umi at 6 are. But as well as that, I think being able to cluster to each other and find each other, we're able to find new bands.
Yeah.
And as much as I envy like the 80s, everyone going to record stores, you know, as they romantically do in John Hughes films, I think we had a kind of a cool thing going on as well, in that you'd find a band, you'd go home and you'd download their music, you'd find it somewhere illegally, and you'd download it and it was on your iPod, and I think that was a really fun time. And whereas now Spotify, there's no such thing as listening to a whole album anymore.
Yeah.
You listen to a single here and there, but kind of back in the emo era, you would download the whole album and you'd listen to it from cover to cover.
Yeah.
Because you wanted to see if these would, you know,
like if they were any good, or if this was something you could add to your... I mean, that was something as well that really appealed to me. I got bored with pop music. And like pop music is designed to be boring after a while. It fits into a very specific time period and a very specific sort of style. So when everybody else was listening to music and was like, oh, this person's really good, or these are great, I'd get bored after maybe like 10 or so listens. And then the first time I kind of listened to any of these bands, I kind of realised there's no trend.
Yeah.
And I do think that has changed now, that a lot of bands, especially ones on major labels, have kind of fit into a trend. So like all the main guys like Fall Out Boy and Panic at the Disco, like they change kind of with the general mainstream trend.
Yeah.
And it's keeping them afloat, it's keeping them with new audiences, because obviously us aging emos aren't going to keep them alive forever, but it is interesting how people kind of switch genres now. Like, remember the whole 5 Seconds of Summer thing, and like all those kids were like previous One Direction fans, and they just scooped up a whole audience, based on kind of being pop punk, but kind of not.
Yeah.
But all those kids would identify as emo, and I remember like being on Twitter and they'd all be like, oh my god, like flannel shirts and skinny jeans are like the 5 Seconds of Summer uniform, like you wear one, you know you can find another 5 Seconds of Summer fan. And it was really weird, but it was so weird seeing it because of what we've just said about how that used to be a very specific, like, oh, that person probably likes Fall Out Boy, whereas they had their own little, like, this is how I find my people. And like I think being in that emo space, I mean, I did my thesis on fandom, so I'm super into the concept of fan. Like, I have a psychology degree. It's not very useful, but I did it on fandoms and on like the people who were involved in fandom spaces, and it has always fascinated me the way we kind of gravitate. So I was kind of on LiveJournal and kind of on MySpace, but like for some reason as a child I was like, these can't possibly, like a child, I was 14, but like these can't possibly be Pete Wentz, this can't actually be Hayley Williams. And I don't know why I doubted it so much. I think it was all that, like, you know, everybody's lying on the internet and they're all like, so I remember like reading some stuff and being like, that's really cool, but it's clearly not them. So I was kind of like out of it a bit, so I'd see it and like drama would happen and I'd be like, what drama? They're not real. But you'd see that and it would be like an analog fandom, because maybe you'd have somebody in school to talk to, you'd have like friends to talk to, but you weren't actually entrenched in this community. Like it was very offline. So I think like coming online, maybe that's why you don't need the fashion as much anymore. It has come into like, well, I can just, if I have an account that has a My Chem lyric in it or a Fall Out Boy lyric in it, or I tweet these bands, I might be able to find people, or like I can join, like a lot of bands have their own forums and their own like fan clubs and stuff, so maybe, I don't know, maybe that's not a thing people need anymore. Like I definitely, for me, I came into the kind of the online world with bands rather than like I went there to find them, whereas I would have like again had kind of a fandom or a like for the band offline. But when Gabe Supporter from Cobra Starship joined Twitter in 2008, I remember that's when I joined Twitter just so I could follow him. I didn't care about following anyone else. I just wanted to follow Gabe on Twitter. That was it. Tell me all your thoughts. And I guess again, like with Bebo, I probably would have been on Bebo when I started my emo-ness. And at that point you're just friends with people you know. There's no such thing as, you know, Instagram now. You can follow people you don't know. You make friends with people that, you know, maybe
are into the same things as you, but you may never meet them. Whereas with Bebo, you got to know who from your friends were emo rather than finding emo friends.
Yeah, I get that, and I think now it's a lot different.
Yeah, and I think that's how we kind of ended up flocking together, was we met through another band who are not emo, categorically not emo, and we ended up flocking together because we had shared interests in Green Day and Paramore and other bands like that.
Yeah, like, I actually don't even remember where I met you first, but my first memory of hanging out with you properly was in the queue for Green Day. So Green Day played Marley Park in 2010.
Yeah.
And I still, like, think of that as possibly one of the best gigs of my life.
Oh my god, it was amazing.
So good. And it was like it was before Green Day released Uno Dos and Tre, which we will talk about in detail at some point when we do our Green Day special. But it was around then. And so, you know, it was before they released those in like 2012 or 2013. So this was like it was 21 Guns.
Yeah, it was that.
It was the 21 Guns tour.
Yeah.
And I got to meet Paramore that day. My friend won like a private meet and greet with Paramore, and I was too small to appreciate it properly. I was like 15 or 16, or maybe just gone 16, and I remember like shaking all the way through it and being like, I don't know how to talk to people. And I remember my mother like freaking out. She was like, you're gonna be hanging out with a band like by yourself, and I was like, yeah, but they're like Christian. And she was like, oh, that's fine. Yeah. She's like, yeah, no, they're good. They probably don't even drink. And at the time, I don't think Hayley did.
No.
She didn't, because she was like worried about her voice and stuff.
Yeah.
So I remember being like, no, these guys are good. But yeah, then I remember coming out after that and sitting on a wall and then going over and queuing, and I ran into you and Nicole in the queue. And then you guys were like just in front of me for the whole...
Yeah, I remember that gig. That was amazing. It was such a good show. And yeah, I remember you telling me that you had just met Paramore, and I was so jealous. I didn't end up meeting them myself until like 2013, I'd say. I met them. They played Belsonic in Belfast, and I won meet and greet tickets through the Paramore fan club.
I remember that.
Yeah.
And it was like 2 dudes, and they were super nice. Wasn't it?
What?
The Paramore fan club, like the guys, there was like 2 guys.
Oh no, the what you call it, the American one.
No, the Irish one.
Oh right, no, it was through the online fan club. So I paid like $30 a year or something.
Okay, whoa.
For the Paramore fan club.
The all-time low one was $5 a year.
Oh really?
Saying. Yeah.
Well, Paramore ended up like the next year they ended up like doing it for free.
Yeah.
And they got rid of it, so I was really annoyed because the only reason I paid this $30 was so that I would be in the running to win tickets to meet them if they ever played here, or if they were ever doing that competition. But I only got 1 ticket, so it was just myself, but I had other friends who had gone up to Belfast with me, and they had 1 tickets as well through the fan club. So we all got to go in and meet them. I was so nervous. What did you say to them? Do you even remember what you said?
I remember talking to Jeremy about, he had a Linkin Park branded Sharpie. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. And he like launched into this big story about it. And I was like, oh, you're so cool. And I was babbling at Hayley about how psyched I was for the show. And I was shaking. And I don't remember what I said. And I was like, oh my God, your shirt's so cool. And then remember Skull Animals? They were like,
yes.
Yeah. And I was like, where. So there was a lot of that, except their manager, I don't know if it was their manager or somebody who was like, I don't know who she was, but she was really bitchy and mean, and they were like happy to just kind of stand there and chat, because like Jeremy and Hayley were kind of chatting amongst themselves and like joining us into the conversation. Zach was kind of like there as he was often. He was just kind of there, and then Josh came out late, said sorry to Hayley for being late, and then stood behind us like just ignoring us. And I went over and said hi, and he was like, oh hi. And I was like, there's only 2 of us here, and I know we're talking like 500 miles an hour, but like we haven't attacked you, and like I haven't screamed or like done anything terrible, because even when they came out and I said hi, I was shaking so bad, but like I didn't like fangirl or anything. I was just trying to keep it all inside. I was so proud of myself for being so like stoic. Like, I'm so cool. And then he came out and he was like, oh sorry I'm late, to Hayley, and she was like, yeah, cool. Then their manager came out, was like, we're doing pictures now, they have to go. And they were kind of like, we're just chatting, like it's fine. So she kind of like hurried them on. But I remember like, because I loved Josh up to that point,
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. And it was real like Never Meet Your Heroes, except Hayley was amazing. And she was so sweet and so nice, and she like gave us hugs and everything, and it was just like it was for never having met a band before, and that being my first experience of meeting a band, it was so positive, except for the Josh bit, because I remember leaving and being devastated.
Yeah, it's definitely a case of don't meet your heroes. I'd never, Josh and Zach were gone by the time I got to meet them, so it was just Jeremy and Taylor and Hayley, and I do remember freaking out a little bit. I was chatting to Jeremy, don't remember what was said, because my friend afterwards was like, oh my god, you're chatting away, it was great, and I was like, were we? I don't remember. I was shaking, I was really nervous as well, and I remember like when like Hayley came to sign I had like this Paramore book, I was like, I like your hair, and as soon as I said, I was like, Clodagh, what have you done? Why did you say that? She gets that all the time. That's probably like the one thing she does not want to hear at like a meet and greet. I was like, what have I done? I'm so uncool. I said I like your hair to Hayley Williams. Like, she gets it all the time. So I was super embarrassed about that. But it was really good.
Yeah, like I think for a band that are that big and are constantly getting bigger still, like they're one of the few bands that are still growing because their sound has changed as they've gone on. And it's one of the few sounds that I believe that's what they wanted to do, as opposed to what a big label has gone, hey, you need to appeal to this audience. Like, I honestly believe that's the music they wanted to write, and that's why I still like it. But for a band that big to be that reasonably cool.
Yeah. I definitely feel like they have kept their audience as well. Like, fair enough, the last time they came here, they played the Olympia Theatre, which is a lot smaller than the 3 Arena, which they've previously played. It was a great gig. I was front row. It was amazing. But they could have well played the 3 Arena and kept the same audience, you know, and even brought new people to see them. But I think they sold themselves short about that one.
Yeah, I wonder, was it just because they hadn't been here for a while? Perhaps. You kind of see some bands going, well, I don't think we'll sell this like venue. Because I know All Time Low played the O2 or 3 Arena or whatever the hell it's called. What is it called now?
I think it's the 3 Arena.
Right,
so
yeah. I'm old. They played it and they ended up having to block out all the seats because they might as well have played the Olympia. I don't know why they didn't.
I didn't know that they played the 3 Arena before. How long ago was that?
That was 2016.
Okay.
Just delving back into my my All Time Low memories.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2016. So they had done an arena tour in England. And obviously thought it's the same. Yeah. And you're like, no, buddy, no, it's not. And the same with, like, they played Balsonic, but everybody from Dublin just travelled up there, and all the people from Belfast who wouldn't normally travel, and some people flew over as well. So obviously they sold out Balsonic. Yeah. And then I think they thought, well, we can do something this size in Dublin as well. Because they'd announced their Dublin show, and I was really excited, and everybody that was there was like, I'm fucking travelling down there for that.
Yeah, because although I've seen All Time Low and I have listened to some of their albums, are like really, really good, like pop emo music. If I'd say that in front of you, Courtney.
you can, it's okay.
I really have enjoyed them, but I wouldn't consider myself a huge fan. Like I said, I would listen to their stuff, but I'm not really. I wouldn't consider them one of my faves anymore.
Yeah, no, they're still one of my faves. I mean, their last album was diabolical. I just hated it so much. It made me angry. It was one of those things where I thought you tried something and it just didn't.
And that's quite upsetting though, when your favourite band goes and does something like that, because I can't even imagine the heartache I'd have if Paramore came out with a shit album.
See, I think for them, they've been on FBR for so long. Yeah. All Time Low only recently got signed to Feel the Ramen, so I feel like they were like, oh, we need to try something new. So they had this like 80s electro synth pop sort of pop punk thing that they tried, and it was supposed to be like a concept album, except it wasn't very well put together. Obviously somebody in like a marketing room was like, hey, we could have this like character and you could write the thing about the character, but it's like that only ever worked for my chem. Yeah. And only because Jared is a genius.
Absolutely. And he's somebody who obviously you can see with the Umbrella Academy, which is on Netflix now, like he was or is a writer, and he knows how to write these intricate stories about characters, whereas you're given All Time Low, they don't really have a background in that. I've never seen them come out with anything
like they've done one kind of experimental album before, and I loved it. Like, people hated it, and I hated it when I first heard it, but then like it's now my favorite of their albums. And this one was just horrendous. Like, actually disappointing as hell. But they're still my faves. I still have small faith that they'll, their next thing, they're going to go back to basics. And they kind of have. They've released a couple of singles and they're kind of more what they used to play. Paramore is still a fave. Even though Panic at the Disco is now just Brendan Urie. And it, I mean, it has been for a while. But now that it's admittedly just Brendan, I still love him. I know, I remember I saw something the other day where you were like, I hate their new album. And I don't love it, but I like some things on it. Yeah, I don't actively hate it.
Their style, for every single album that they've released, their style has changed.
Yeah.
Like when you go from A Few of You Can't Sort It Out to Pretty Odd, they're so different. And I feel like the second album, Pretty Odd, is so different because I know Ryan Ross is a massive fan of the Beatles.
Yeah.
And I feel like he kind of took creative control almost of that album. Fucked shit up and then left the band.
Yeah.
Their third one was, Vices and Virtues.
I think that's my favourite one.
I really like that one. They are, because I feel like the Ballad of Mona Lisa is like pop but emo.
Yes.
It had radio success, at least here in Ireland.
Yeah. No, I think I agree. Like that was their single. I think that was the single they released. Because I remember before that they had done a song for Jennifer's Body.
Yes.
I loved that film.
Yeah.
So good. But him and Spencer.
Yes.
Spencer.
That was when Ryan and
John had left.
Walker left.
I always feel like Ryan thought because he wrote the lyrics before that if he left them, they'd be screwed.
Yeah.
And then they weren't, because actually Brendan's really good at writing songs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think he never really got a chance before that. No, they're still like if they were to play here or they were to play somewhere that I could get to, I'd go see them again. No bother. Like I've seen them in England a couple of times, like once in the Forum in London, and I think they played Slam Dunk as well 1 year too, and then they played the Olympia here a few years ago too.
Yeah, that's the only time I've seen them. I went to that gig on my own actually.
Aww,
and it was
I didn't know you
incredible.
Were there.
I had so much fun, but it was enjoyable because I think the girl beside me was on her own as well.
Oh, okay.
But we didn't really. It was like a non-spoken thing, but we were just kind of there, chilling, out, having a great time. Yeah. It was such.
That was a great gig. I'm trying to think who else. Like obviously Fall Out Boy. Like I'm not mad on their new stuff, but I feel like Fall Out Boy are like emo dads.
Yeah.
And they've grown with their sound, and I think it's respectful of their original audience as opposed to being too commercial in some ways. Like I feel like a lot of their audience is our age and older. It's like people in their early 30s were into Fall Out Boy because they were like the original emo band. So I do think that what they've done is they've grown with their own sound, and they're kind of going, well, we're in our 30s and we're dads and we're getting older. Here's music we'd like to listen to, but that still respects like the lyrical thing that got people into us in the first place. So I can respect it even if I don't love it.
Yeah.
And then obviously My Kim.
They are, like we're in 2019 right now.
2019, yeah.
Their last album was set in 2019. Danger Days.
Was it?
Yeah, it was set in the future.
This is the
2019.
We are in the future.
So we are now in 2019, and there was a lot of conversation about will they come back in 2019, because I was actually only listening to it earlier on, and at the end, like Dr. Death, who's like the radio voiceover, it's another concept album, he says, goodbye for now sort of thing, I know you'll miss me. And there was a lot of conversation about will My Chem come back in 2019. Like obviously 2019, the Umbrella Academy, which is Jared Way's comic that was released on Netflix, will they come back? Who knows? You've got another 7 months to find out.
Yeah, I can't see it happening. I would love it. I never got to see them live.
Did you know?
No. And when they last played here in 2011, they were giving away tickets on the radio, because that was Brian and Dara.
Yeah.
The lock-in, was it? Or the lockdown or the lock-in?
The lock-in, I think, yeah.
And they were giving away tickets. And I've won Blink tickets. I've won like all sorts of tickets off it. But a girl I know who was like a huge fan of My Chem won them instead of me, and I was like, you know what, I'm happy. I'll catch them the next time.
Yeah.
And it just didn't happen. I did get to see Jared play at Reading and Leeds it was Leeds Fest I went to in 2014. So when he did, I mean, it was as close as I was gonna get. Like, you're making a face. Clodagh's making a face.
Close enough.
Yeah, it was fine. I didn't love that.
Did they do any My Chem songs?
No. And he said I watched actually an interview the other day where he said, I don't know, it was from 4 years ago, but he said that when he was doing those tours, he didn't want to play My Chem stuff because he didn't want to set a precedent where people would expect him to always do that.
Okay.
Because I think he thought he was going to continue doing music, and then he disappeared off the face of the earth for a while, and then he ended up in Wales. And like, it was a whole weird thing.
Yeah, I was on his Twitter account the other day, doing a lot of research for this podcast, and he had something like, go follow this account for updates on Jared Way's life or something. Can't remember what the account was called. But he hadn't tweeted himself since like 2015. Yeah, he literally just stepped back from everything. I think he had, I don't know, like whether he just got kind of lost or wanted to spend more time with his family, and then kind of got focused on Umbrella Academy and writing more. I think he's still writing Umbrella Academy books. I'm not really sure what's going on there. I think he might have another one as well. I can't remember the name of it, but it was in his Twitter bio, so I can only assume that he had been writing another comic or something else, which is great. At least we're getting something from Jared Way's brain. Yeah, like he's still working on stuff, but I think he's just he's done. And I've seen Frank Aguero and The Celebration and whatever one came after The Celebration. That's not, because so Frank Aguero's bands at the moment, they have a concept for each album, but he changes the band name for every concept. So the first one was Frank Aguero and The Celebration, then there was Frank Aguero and the something, and then there's now Frank Aguero and The Future Violence. Okay, see, this I did not know. Yeah, so I've seen them three times. No, I went through like a phase of having, like, I have really bad anxiety, and I had like a sensory problem where loud noises would cause me to have panic attacks. So I went to see Frankie in the Academy, and somebody whistled really loudly like close by, and I literally had a panic attack and had to go home. So I saw them twice and was in the room to see them 3 times. Oh no. Yeah, which kind of sucked, but I got to see them. I saw them in Bristol, which is a weird place to go to. He supported Mallory Knox, which is really weird. Another band you love. Yeah, Mallory. I travel. I don't anymore. Like, I can't anymore, but I used to travel an awful lot for gigs. Like, especially when you go to England, like, tickets are like 15 quid. They're cheap, yeah. Yeah, like it's obviously because it's easier for them to get there and easier for them to get gear around and stuff. But like, you'd spend like 15 quid on a ticket and have the best time of your life. €15 on a Ryanair flight, and yeah. I used to be the same. I think the last time I travelled to see a band was like last January, a band called Khruangbin, which are like psychedelic rock, like totally not emo. They were really, really good. But other than that, like, I would have travelled a good bit to see Yumi at 6 because I was really obsessed with them there for a while. Their live gig, Final Night Sin, I went to see them in Southampton, which was completely random, but it was the only place I got tickets for. Belfast a couple of times. But other than that, I think I've been pretty quiet in regards to travelling for gigs. I think it's definitely only been like Yumi at 6. Yeah, like, there's no band. I mean, the next band I'm going to see is Fever 333, and it's the singer. He used to be in Let Live, if you remember that from a couple of years ago. Like, that's the next thing I'm going to go see. There's nothing like, and it's really quiet here as well. Like, bands don't really come here. I mean, like I said earlier, we had Yumi at 6 came over in November. They played the 10-year anniversary show for Take Off Your Colours. Before that, I can't remember the last, emo band that I went to see. Yeah, like, I had tickets to see Cute Is What We Aim For. No, I had those tickets and then they cancelled. And then I found out some stuff that he'd said online originally when the Me Too stuff came out. And it was really stupid and ignorant. And then he apologised because people were like, sorry. What? And then he was like basically schooled. And he did apologise genuinely, but I was still like, that's dodgy as all hell. It was basically just like, women are stronger than that, and you're like, no. It was real, like, he wanted to be on the side of like, women aren't weak, because that's what he thought people were saying. Okay. And he completely got the wrong end of the stick, and it was like really shitty when I read it. And then I read his apology, and his apology was a lot better than most apologies we've seen, and it was just like a completely ignorant thing he said. But I think had I seen that before, I would have been really mad. Would it turn you off going? Probably. Like, I do think that's another episode we need to
talk about like what would actually stop you going to see a band, because as we know, over the last couple of years, a lot of bands have been outed for doing really shitty things, especially in the era of Me Too. We've had a lot of people come forward and say, this happened to me. Something has happened to a friend of mine actually a few years ago, that she was really brave and came forward and said, and that drama is still ongoing, which is really sad and really shit, because other people are now involved in it too. And I just think like when you are a teenager, you're really trusting, and even if you like are attracted to people in the band, you don't really know what it is you're expecting to happen. So like if somebody were to give you that kind of attention, or apply you a drink or do whatever, like I don't know how I would have reacted as a kid to that. And like obviously not every experience is mine. Like maybe some people did think they knew what they were getting into and then it didn't turn out that way. But I do think that's something like a future topic for us to discuss.
So I think we're going to wrap it up. We're going to talk a little bit about maybe what kind of reunions would you like to see over the next, 2019. What do you want to see happen?
Obviously I would love, as we said, My Chem to come back. Yes. I don't think they will. I think Jared's so resistant to the idea of doing like anniversary tours. But a lot of bands are, and then it comes around to it, and then they kind of, nostalgia and stuff kicks in. So obviously that's going to be top of the list. I'd love to see Hey Monday. Remember Hey Monday?
My god, yes. I love for that to happen.
Like, I know Cassidy is a Cassidy Pope. She went on The Voice of America, or whatever they call it over there, won, and is now like a really successful country music star, which, good for you. Like some of her songs are really, really good as well. Like, she's amazing. And I would love like even a one-off date maybe in England somewhere. I might go.
I would love to see that as well.
Whatever happened to Metro Station?
Oh god, I've no idea. I know like they met on the set of Hannah Montana. The two guys, I think obviously Trey Cyrus, Miley Cyrus's brother, and then Mason Musso was the brother of the guy from Hannah Montana. I don't remember what his name was, Oliver or whatever. Yeah. So that was bizarre and the least emo thing to happen. Hanging out on the set of Hannah Montana. But I think I would actually like to see them. I really would. I remember there was that tour, Believers Never Die, and it was like Hey Monday, Metro Station, Fall Out Boy, Cobra Starship, and there was another band. But I remember that being like my dream lineup. Really, really wanted to go and see that.
Sounds amazing.
I think All Time Low were the fifth band actually.
Yes.
Cherry on top of the cake
for you there. Of course they were. Of course they were. Cobra Starship. I just remember this from like, because we didn't really talk that much online, but like I remember vague like Facebook interactions. You were obsessed with Cobra Starship. I always Beyond. Like whenever I thought of Cobra Starship, I'd be like, Clodagh really likes them.
Yeah, I like they weren't really, their music wasn't really indie or emo even. I think they kind of got their association, at least for me. I knew them through Fall Out Boy. Gabe and Pete were really good friends. And they were on the same record label as well. I was obsessed with Cobra Starship. I remember when I found out I won the meet and greet with Cobra Starship, I like fell to the floor and started crying. Super dramatic. Very dramatic. So we met them. The meet and greet was amazing. I have a photograph that is just awful. We'd queued all day, obviously, so we get front row, but it didn't matter that whether or not we'd get front row because we had meet and greet tickets. And in the meet and greet, obviously our phones died. And we have one really, really bad picture. It's pixelated. It's really dark. It was taken in the green room in the academy downstairs, just in like bar lighting conditions.
Can we put it on the Instagram?
Yes.
Even though it's horrible. Can we put?
Yeah. I don't think we'll be able to make it out, but we'll definitely pop it up on
just
on
circle
Instagram.
Your face. And
if I can figure it out. It's very, very, very dark. I'd love to see them. A band called Family Force 5 supported them. Do you remember them?
No.
They were like Christian metal emo, right?
What a genre!
That's
a mashup.
All of their albums are really good and really like kind of metally emo, but they were about Jesus and God. But they were kind of really good.
There was a lot of Christian rock bands that kind of, like Paramore started out as that.
Yeah.
And then there was, remember like Skillet?
Yes.
I don't think it's
Reliant K. I don't know how that's pronounced.
I think
Reliant K.
Reliant K. Yeah.
I used to love them. They were kind of Christian rock as well.
Yeah, it was really strange how many of those bands like became as famous as they did.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. I'm sure we've forgotten loads for the reunion, but like obviously top of 2019 wish list is My Chem.
100%. So that's it for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to this podcast, Kids From Yesterday. If you'd like to find us, you can get us on Instagram. We're at kidsfromyesterdaypod. And we are on Twitter as well. We are at kidsfromyesterdaypod. So that's spelled YDAY.
Yeah, if you're listening, make sure you share it. Share with your friends. Tell people. I don't know. Share.
Post it on your Instagram story and tag us so we can share it too. We want to be friends.
We do. We need friends. We don't have any friends. Yeah, so thanks so much for listening and we'll catch you next week. Bye.
Bye.